Hey, you guys, how are you? I see Bean said first comment. Woohoo! Brooke, nice to see ya. I'm so excited that you guys are catching me on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. That is awesome. I feel like I'm all over the internet except on Twitter and I guess Pinterest and Instagram, which is a big one too. Hey, Alexander. Awesome. I love seeing your guys' names week by week. You guys are like committed. You guys are like 3 p.m. Thursday. Yep, I have a date with Emily. Awesome. Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. I'm so excited for today's topic. I'm going to be covering the only 2 times that you should ever apply online. And actually, I really struggled with the second one. I have like a little asterisk next to that, which I'll share. But before we dive in, I just wanted to introduce myself. I am Emily Liu. I'm a former recruiter, and now I'm a career happiness coach that helps job seekers land their dream jobs with solution messages and really learn how to stand out as the top 1% of candidates. Essentially, I got really tired of telling candidates, we loved you, but we found another candidate without giving any real constructive feedback. So that's exactly why I am a career coach now, and I love being able to work with job seekers who really feel discouraged and frustrated and just really questioning, like, what am I doing wrong? And seeing their evolution and their transformation to getting that inbox message that says, I landed my dream job or I got an offer. So really, really excited to be here with you guys today. Before I dive into our training, I also wanted to share that by popular demand, our free 5-day live challenge is starting. Well, it's starting on June 7th, so we're a little bit early, but I wanted to put that on your guys' calendar. If you have not yet registered, you want to go to cultivateyourcareer.com/challenge and register. It's a really great challenge. And the reason why I create it every single year is because it's my way of helping job seekers really lay out through 5 days of training, like, here's what you need to do to land a dream job. And it's so beautiful because we get to actually go into action together. Every single day has a little homework prompt. And it's just amazing what you can accomplish within just a few days together. So every time I host it, we have so much great testimonials and feedback from people saying that they've landed their dream jobs, to people who just say that they feel much more encouraged and inspired and have more clarity and focus and are excited about their job search. And then we have a lot of people who say that they actually felt like they had fun doing job search activities, which you guys know me. If you guys aren't having fun, then I think we're doing it all wrong, right? Like, job searching doesn't have to be this dreaded task that we just get around to. It could actually be a lot of fun when we're doing it with intention and having a real purpose and a really clear orientation of what it is we want, why we want it. And then again, just knowing like the steps is so helpful in making it really easy and allowing it to flow. By the way, I do have a giving key. My students in my accelerator program asked me about this yesterday. This is a key that has my theme word on it, which says flow, because I really do believe that we don't have to hustle or like grind or just like do things for the sake of doing things, like applying online, like click, 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 just to get the results we want. Sometimes it's when we take a step back and we actually like really ground ourselves and go into something with full intention and allow ourselves to trust the process, have faith, and let it flow, that things start to emerge. And that's really where the real magic lies, in my opinion. And I've seen this happen with job seekers, job seekers who felt like they just had to like craft a bunch of resumes and customize a bunch of cover letters and hit apply like 10 jobs a week, to kind of taking a step back, zooming out, and really getting intentional, having genuine, authentic conversations that ultimately led into introductions, referrals, and of course, interviews and offers. So that's the goal here. All right, so if you guys are here with me today, before I dive into the only 2 times that I think you should apply online, let me know, drop it in the chat what you think I'm about to say, or like share with me when you think it's a good time to use the apply online strategy. So what scenarios, what situations and cases. And then I'm also curious for those that are here, just roughly speaking, in your last job or your current job search, how many applications you put in, whether like their resume submissions or you've handed over your resume, like how many resume applications have you completed? So give me a ballpark, because I just read yesterday, I was looking at why people joined our upcoming challenge, and somebody had wrote that they are now on their 302nd application, and they're still frustrated that they haven't gotten an offer. And to me, I'm like all about metrics, I'm all about numbers, and I like looking at things through a scientific lens. And to me, like there's something that definitely needs correcting there. And that's exactly the word that I would use. It's correcting. There's nothing like inherently wrong with this person. They're not hopeless or unable to find a job. They just need a new strategy. They need a new approach. They need to try something different so that they don't continue getting that same result. So Robert says, if you don't know anyone at the company or you're applying for an entry-level job, are good times to apply online. Okay, so really interesting. I want to read the rest that are coming through, but I'm going to share that one of the well, before I dive into that, let me explain a little bit about what happens when a job posting goes up. So, a lot of people don't know this, but usually what happens when companies decide to hire is they realize, oh my gosh, we just lost Robert. Robert was amazing. Now we have this talent gap. We need to fill or backfill this position. Or maybe they're starting to grow like crazy and they're like, wow, like we really need another account manager to bring in to take care of these accounts. Or perhaps it's due to, well, those are really the two main ones, like, right, letting somebody go or somebody voluntarily resigning, or there's a new demand or need, or sometimes there's a need because they didn't really even think that they needed a position, but somebody like amazing comes along and they're just like, wow, this is such a great talent. Like, we don't want to lose out on this candidate. We really want them to work for our company. They have a really strong vision or skills. Let's see how we can get them in to fill a role. And they'll then create a role for that person that they've identified. So typically what happens though is there's a need, like there's a gap, and they decide we need to fill this position. So at this stage, this is really where the company starts to think about what title would this be for, who's the hiring manager, what is the budget that we approve. So again, when you go through salary negotiations and people ask you, or recruiters and hiring managers ask, what do you want to be paid? You can always deflect because they do have a budget and they can share their budget with you. So these three things get approved. The title, who the hiring manager is, and then the salary. At this stage, typically what happens is the company starts to look internally. Do we know anybody that can get promoted into this role? Can we move anybody into this role? Do we know anybody that we can refer into this role? And this is really where, again, you hear that phrase, networking is so important, because before the job ever gets posted, the company is asking their employees, do you know anybody who could be a good fit for this role? The hiring manager is starting to look through their Rolodex and going through the people that they've spoken to see, like, would anybody fit this role? And then when there are 0 candidates available, like they just realize nobody is internally ready for this promotion. We don't know anybody internally, or we don't know anybody personally that can fit this role. Then what happens is that that job description gets copied and pasted into Indeed, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Monster, Career Builder, right? Like, we've all seen them. Actually, what's more accurate is the position gets created into their applicant tracking system, and then they have this easy button where they can then distribute it to these different job boards. And then that's when people will start to apply online. They'll see like, ooh, there's a new title, a new job posting. They'll fill out their application, and then everything enters the applicant tracking system for this one job, right? And so I wanted to share all of that because when you're looking at filling a role, you're a job seeker, a candidate who's eager to fill a role. there's really only 2 times that applying online is going to work in your favor. So Robert says if you don't know anyone at the company, we'll get to that. That's part of it. But the first one is really when you're making a lateral move or you're going into like a very similar role. So again, going back to account manager, if your last title was account coordinator or account manager, then chances are if you apply online, you have a pretty stellar background in terms of like no typos, no grammatical errors, but it's very clear like you have the skill sets and you have a proven track record of being an account manager and you're applying to that account manager position. Chances are pretty high that you will get selected for at least an interview. And I want to emphasize this because at the end of the day, a sourcer, which is basically like a recruiting coordinator that is very specialized in finding candidates, or a recruiter who are like taking a look at all of these resumes that have come through, their job, the reason why they're getting compensated or getting paid a salary is because their job is to find the best qualified candidate. So if you're, again, applying to an account manager role and you have an account manager title currently or in the past, yes, you may get that job interview. But if you are I don't know, we'll go with like realtor, for instance, I'm just throwing that out there, who now wants to be an account manager. And again, inside of this pile of resume database, there are like 4 to 6 other account managers that are currently account managers. Chances are you may get passed up, right? Because again, the number one job for a recruiter, a sourcer, a recruiting coordinator is to hire the most qualified match or to present the most qualified match. So again, if you're making a lateral move, you're making a move into a similar role just for a different company, then chances are pretty high that if you apply online, you're going to get at least an interview. So type in a yes or give me a thumbs up or a heart or whatever if this is jiving with you guys, that makes sense. Awesome. Okay, cool. So the second one, and I'm going to put an asterisk next to this, is so the second time it makes sense to apply online is when you've modified your resume to match what the position is. So a lot of you guys who are in my Happily Hired programs know in my resume template module, I share with you how to build a resume template like a foundational resume template so that you can easily modify and tweak certain areas or hot zones to match the job that you're going for. And this is really key because if you guys are spending like an hour every single time editing your resume, you're doing it all wrong. At max, I would recommend spending like 10 to 15 minutes updating your resume, customizing it, making sure that you're really speaking to that position that you're applying to so that you can make that best possible match as they start to skim through the resumes. And I want to caveat this with your resume is just a marketing tool. This is you marketing yourself and personally branding yourself to the position that you're orienting yourself for to at least perk up the interest of that recruiter, that sourcer on the other end to say, wow, Alexander looks interesting. Let's give Alexander a call. I want to learn more. Right. And so if you have not customized your resume, you haven't taken the time to really cater and match up your resume as close to the job description as possible with the specific keywords, then chances are you're also going to get passed up. So those are the 2 times that I would recommend you apply online. But again, with the caveat of the second one, no matter what, when you apply online, this is really where the magic happens is in the follow-up. So as you guys know, build out a really stellar LinkedIn profile, build out a really stellar customized resume as your foundations. And then regardless, if you don't know anyone at the company, Robert, it's really in the networking and the following up. So this is exactly why in my Connect with Your Dream Network module, I have so many templates for different scenarios because ideally you want to message the recruiter, you want to message the hiring manager, like 2 minimum, so that you can follow up and guarantee that your resume is going to be seen, because what happens is they get curious. Who is Alexander that just messaged me? I loved their message. The solution message like really spoke to me. So let me pull out their resume from that pile. And you're again guaranteeing yourself to be seen. So this is also the strategy to use when you are making a career transition. So again, if you are going for an account manager role, but you were never previously an account manager, or you haven't held that role traditionally, how do you stand out? How do you beat out the other candidates that are account managers, right? This is really where, again, your LinkedIn, your resume, customizing yourself with your personal brand to where you want to be, and combining that with a connection message, a solution message to get visible and to get seen and to build that rapport and that trust, and position yourself as somebody who can land or who can do that job, even if you're not traditionally the right background. Because again, going back to the very beginning of all this, when I shared how positions get open and even make it to the job boards, remember, before they ever post the job onto a job board, they're asking, who do we know? Who can fill in this role? Who has been vouched for or recommended, or who do we like personally trust and like and know that can fit this role? And so this is really where, again, that building the relationship, starting to get visible, starting to connect with your dream employers really comes into play. And if you guys don't have a strategy to get connected with your dream employers, it's never too late to start. I'll share with you, they always say like you should network when you don't need a job technically, but I have a lot of job seekers who join my programs and they are starting from scratch. Like, nope, haven't really networked, or I've exhausted my network. So I need to like start reaching out to people. Perfectly fine. The best time to get started is in the present moment, right? Come up with your dream list of organizations. And then who are those people at those organizations you need to connect with? And how do you send a message? And I also want to like emphasize that you don't just have to send a message after you've seen a job posting. Again, most jobs are filled before they're ever posted online. You want to get into that that first like 80% that get filled before they ever make it to a job board. That's called the hidden job market, right? So it's like, how do I start building those relationships? And how do I start getting this hiring manager of this department that I want to work for at this company to get to know who I am? And it all begins with a solution message, an introduction, so that you can position yourself there. So let me see here. And I want to emphasize that it's really about, again, if you're making a career transition, it's about having conversations. Having connections, having conversations is going to get you so much further along than applying online. And this is really how we see people make the wildest career transitions. I was just talking to somebody who has, in my program, she has a nonprofit background and she just joined a Fortune 500 company. And I have so many people tell me, like, I don't have the industry experience, so I don't think I can make that transition. But again, she was able to get somebody to vouch for her just by starting the conversation and the dialogue, and that opened it up. So Joe asked, how is this process different between private and government applications? That's a really great question. So what I'm going to say is that for government applications, you absolutely want to follow their instructions to a T. That being said, though, if they're on LinkedIn, like you can do a search and that person at the government is on LinkedIn, it never hurts to build a relationship and to connect, because again, as long as we're humans, we're making human decisions, and oftentimes things are relationship built. Yes, the government has a very strict deadline. Like, we want to take a look at all applications that come in by this due date, and then we'll start the process. But I've had people in the government, and I used to also recruit for government agencies that had a very heavy emphasis on referrals. Who do we know? Who do we trust? What has so-and-so said about this person? And I would even argue that for governments, they really like to look at reference checks, right? For a reason, because they want to like have others vouch for somebody's character. So never underestimate the power of getting visible and also networking. with government agencies as well. And I will also share that I used to do a lot of networking events where government agencies were there, and they would always like tell, like if it was like at a job fair, they would tell the job seekers, like, keep in touch with me. Like, here's my business card, here's my email, here's my contact. But what's really interesting is oftentimes when people get those business cards, they rarely follow up. And I've talked to a lot of hiring managers that say, like, yeah, I go to like these student fairs, or I talk at these events, and I always give out my business card, but very few people actually follow up and then maintain that relationship. So there's a whole art behind it, but never too late. And I'm going to argue it goes across all industries, all sectors, and every level. Even Robert, you said if you're applying for entry level jobs, you should apply online. That's true to a degree, because the higher up the career ladder you get, the more referral based and relationship based it gets, right? Because you've now built out your Rolodex, you've now built out your authority and credibility in a certain industry or inside of a certain organization. But even at entry level positions, I know so many people who get internships based on the connections that they've made. I had one of my favorite stories is Chi, who got an internship at Tesla, and through a solution message, like didn't know anybody at that company, very competitive internship, but got visible through these connection requests and these messages. So I'm hoping that this really helps frame why it's so important to not just rely online for applications as your strategy, but instead looking at it more holistically and getting really honest with yourself. And do I fit into these two buckets? One, am I making a lateral move or going for a very similar role? Also known as not making a career transition, just changing companies, right? And then am I modifying my resume strategically to really position myself as a marketing tool to get to where I want to be? And this is huge, because personal branding is not about where you've been. It's really about where you're headed. And if you can position yourself towards where you're headed, you're going to have a much higher likelihood of connecting those dots for your employer. And despite not having the traditional background or the last title, you can still position yourself as the person that needs that position or needs to get hired for that position, right? And again, this is going to go through. So this is what I love about like having a really strong personal brand and having these connection messages or solution messages. By the time you get into the interview, it's less about grilling you, like, well, you don't have this, or you didn't go to this degree, you didn't get this major or this degree, or you don't have this license, or you don't have this certificate, right? Like, you've done the relationship building, you've packaged yourself, you've positioned yourself very strategically. This is really where it then becomes more of a dialogue and like a conversational interview, which to me are the best interviews, because they're really at that point just assessing how much do you want this job, and can you do this job, and do we like you, right? Those are the three questions. All right, so that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. I'm trying to keep these like under 30 minutes. Short and sweet is always good, right? And again, if you guys want support around all of this in more depth, I'm going to be covering this in detail inside of our Land Your Dream Job Challenge, which kicks off on June 7th. So I'm going to go ahead and type in the URL here if you guys want to join. It's cultivateyourcareer.com/challenge. And that's going to be the free 5-day Land Your Dream Job Challenge. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Next week, I'm going to talk about why it's never too late to make a career transition. I am so passionate about this one because so many people tell me that it's too late. They're afraid of making a change because they're going to have to take a step back in their career, a pay cut, or, they've just invested so much time, energy, and effort into a certain degree or major. But then they also zoom out and they're like, I don't know if I could do this for another 10, 20, 30 years. And I just want to emphasize, it is never too late to make a career transition. So if this is something that you've been thinking about and you want that extra push, tune in next Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific, because I will push you there. Alrighty. Nice to see you all. And hey, Alyssa, you just caught the tail end, but it's so good to see you. I hope that you guys all enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.